Hey everyone. Tonight we're slipping into the frostbitten world of medieval peasants, where survival feels like a high-stakes game of don't freeze to death. Picture yourself shivering in a flimsy hut, the wind whistling through cracks like it's auditioning for a horror movie soundtrack. Every night is a gamble, your thin walls, your scratchy cloak, your sheer stubbornness pitted against winter's icy claws. You might not survive this, not without some serious grit and a few clever tricks up your sleeve. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love hearing where you're chilling out tonight. Now, turn down the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise. And let's get started on tonight's journey together. You're crouched in a medieval peasant hut, the kind that makes your modern apartment's drafty window seem like a five-star hotel. It's winter, and the cold isn't just uncomfortable, it's a bully, sneaking through every gap in your wattle and daub walls. These walls, bless their heart, are just sticks woven together like a giant basket, slathered with a mix of mud, straw, and yes, animal dung. Sounds gross, but that dung's a cheap insulator. And when you're poor, you work with what you've got. No windows. Unless you count a hole stuffed with animal hide that flaps in the wind like it's mocking you. The roof thatch sagging under snow, leaking just enough to keep things interesting. Your floor's packed dirt, sometimes turning to mud when the weather's feeling extra spiteful. You're basically living in a wind tunnel with a side of character-building misery. The historical kicker here is the harsh winter of 1315, part of the Great Famine that wrecked Europe. Freezing temperatures, endless rain, and crop failures turned survival into a nightmare. You're not just fighting cold, you're fighting starvation. 2. As turnips rot and livestock drop. Historians still debate whether the famine's death toll was worse due to disease or sheer cold. But either way, waking up alive was a win. An odd fact. Some peasants smeared extra dung on their walls midwinter, thinking it'd glue the cracks shut. Spoiler, it didn't always work, but it sure made your hut smell like a barnyard's bad day. You're wrapped in a rough wool tunic, maybe two if you're fancy, but they're about as warm as a paper towel in a blizzard. Your cloak smells like it's been on a Goat's World tour. And your bed's a sack of straw that crunches like cereal every time you move. Fleas come free with every mattress, because medieval life loves throwing in bonuses. The cold's not just a nuisance, it's dangerous. Frostbite's a real threat, turning fingers black before you can blink. You huddle close to the hearth, a pitiful fire spitting more smoke than heat. If you're lucky, you're near it. If not, you're basically ice camping indoors. Joke break. Why did the peasant's hut always lose at poker? Because it couldn't stop leaking its hand through the cracks. And speaking of cracks, you're stuffing them with moss, rags, anything to slow the wind's invasion. It's like trying to plug a sinking ship with a tissue. Your siblings are bickering over who gets the warm spot by the fire, and you're pretty sure the cow in the corner's judging your life choices. Medieval life's no fairy tale, no knights or feasts here. Just you versus the cold. And the cold's got a mean right hook. You're not whining, though whining doesn't keep you warm. You layer every scrap of cloth you own, pile straw on the floor, and pray the fire doesn't die. The wind howls like it's got a personal grudge. But you're a peasant, and peasants don't quit. You're learning fast survival's about ingenuity, not comfort. Maybe you smear a little sheep grease on the walls, hoping it'll stick better than your optimism. It's not pretty, but it's your life, and you're determined to see another sunrise, even if it means smelling like a farmyard reject. The real adventure's just kicking off. Every night's a test, and you're studying hard. You've got no thermostat, no fluffy blankets, just a stubborn streak and a hut that's more holes than walls. Your family's in this with you, and maybe a grumpy goat or two. Because in medieval winters, you take warmth wherever you can get it. You're not just surviving, you're outsmarting the cold. One shivering step at a time. And trust me, it's only going to get wilder from here. You're still shivering in that medieval peasant hut. The wind sneaking through cracks like it's got a personal vendetta. The cold's relentless, but your real MVP in this frostbitten saga isn't your dung-smeared walls or your itchy cloak. It's the hearth, the smoky, stubborn fire pit at the center of your world. You're crouched beside it now, poking at the embers, praying they don't fizzle out. This fire's not just warmth, it's your lifeline, your kitchen, your Netflix, all rolled into one. Without it, you're toast, or rather, you're a human popsicle, and not the fun kind. The hearth's a simple setup, a circle of stones, some half-burned logs, and enough smoke to make you feel like you're auditioning for a dragon role. No fancy chimney here. Smoke just drifts up, finding its way out through a hole in the thatch, or, more often, into your lungs. You're coughing like you've got a side hustle as a chimney sweep. But on the plus side, the smoke's great for chasing off fleas, medieval pest control, baby 0 stars on Yelp, but it gets the job done. An odd fact, some peasants believe the smoke purified the air, warding off evil spirits. Spoiler, it didn't, but it sure made your eyes water like you're chopping onions for a village feast. A key historical moment tied to fire's importance is the 12 of 12 London fire, where thousands died because wooden homes and open hearths were a disaster waiting to happen. You're lucky your hut's in the countryside, not a packed city, but the lesson's clear: fire's your friend. But it's a friend who might burn your house down if you look away. Historians still debate whether medieval fire safety was more about luck than skill. Given how often sparks turned villages into bonfires, you're feeding the fire now, tossing in a stick that's more damp than dry, because dry wood's rarer than a sunny day in February. The flames sputter, mocking your efforts, but you keep at it. Everyone's got a job here. Your little brother's stacking kindling. Your mom's muttering about how last year's fire was better. And even the dog's curled up close, adding moral support and a faint whiff of wet fur. Letting the fire die isn't just a bummer, it's a death sentence. Restarting it means striking flint and steel with frozen fingers. And good luck finding dry tinder when the world's one big slushy. Joke break. Why did the medieval fire go to therapy? It had too many smoldering relationships. And speaking of smoldering, you're trying not to choke on the smoke while keeping the embers alive. The hearth's your only light source, casting flickering shadows that make your hut look like a haunted Airbnb. You're telling stories to pass the time, maybe about the neighbor who swore he saw a ghost, or the time your cousin fell into a snowdrift and blamed a witch. It's not exactly HBO, but it beats staring into the dark, wondering if your toes are still attached. The fire's also your kitchen, where you're warming a pot of turnip stew that's more turnip than flavor. Cooking's a team effort. And you're stirring while your sister guards the pot from the cat, who's eyeing it like it's a Michelin star meal. The hearth's glow pulls everyone close, not just for warmth, but for survival. You're learning its moods when it needs air, when it's hungry for wood, when it's just being a drama queen. Every crackle's a promise you're still in the game. But the cold's not giving up. It's seeping through the floor, nibbling at your fingers, reminding you that one wrong move, one neglected ember, and it's game over. You're banking the fire now, piling ash over the coals to keep them alive till dawn. It's delicate work, like tucking in a fussy baby. Get it wrong, and you're waking up to a cold hearth and colder toes. Joke number 2. Why was the hearth so bad at hide and seek? Because it always gave itself away with a spark. You're not alone in this. Your family's huddled around, their breath fogging the air like tiny ghost clouds. The cow in the corner's chewing cud, adding a weirdly soothing soundtrack. The hearth's your anchor, but it's also a needy diva, demanding constant attention. You're exhausted, your eyes stinging from smoke. But you keep going. Medieval winters don't care about your sleep schedule. You're fighting for every degree of warmth, every flicker of hope. The night's stretching on, and the wind's howling like it's got a score to settle. You're not just keeping the fire alive, you're keeping your family alive, your home alive, your will to not become a medieval icicle alive. The hearth's your heart, and as long as it's burning, you've got a shot. So you poke, you prod, you pray, and you hold on. Because in this freezing world, that little fire's the only thing standing between you and the cold's victory lap. You're still in that medieval hut. The hearth's smoky glow your only ally against the cold that's trying to turn you into a human snow cone? The fire's doing its best. But let's be real, it's more of a suggestion of warmth than a proper hug. You're bundled up now, wearing every scrap of cloth you own. Looking like a walking laundry pile. Your tunic's rough wool. Your cloak's got that distinct Ode to Goat vibe. And your leggings sag like they're giving up on life. But here's the kicker, the dirtier your clothes get, the warmer you stay. That's right. In medieval winters, filth is your friend. And you're about to become besties with grime. Layering's your survival strategy. And you're not messing around. You've got your undertunic, a scratchy linen number that's seen better days, topped with a thicker wool one that's more holes than fabric. Over that, a cloak so patched it's practically a quilt. If you're lucky, you've scrounged a bit of sheepskin to drape over your shoulders, but it's not exactly haute couture, more like I hope this doesn't smell worse tomorrow. Your feet wrapped in rags stuffed into clogs? Because boots are for lords, not you. Washing these layers. Dream on, and dragging your only shirt to a frozen stream and waiting for it to dry is a one-way ticket to Frostbite City. So you let the dirt build up. And weirdly, it works. Here's the odd fact that grime on your clothes isn't just gross, it's insulation. Layers of mud, sweat, and sheep grease clog the fabric's weave, making it wind-resistant. It's like medieval Gore-Tex, just with a side of stench. You're basically wearing a crusty thermal shield, and in a world where clean equals cold, you're not complaining. A key historical moment ties to the Black Death of 1347 when filthy clothes and cramped huts helped spread fleas and plague. Cleanliness might have saved lives, but in winter, warmth trumped hygiene. And you're picking warmth every time. Historians still debate whether peasants knew dirt helped insulate or if they just got lucky. But either way, your smelly tunic's keeping you alive. You're waddling around now, layered up like a human onion, each step a rustle of grimy fabric. Your hat's a woolen cap, probably knitted by your grandma, who's muttering about how kids today don't appreciate a good itch. Gloves, maybe some leather scraps tied together, looking more like sad mittens than anything else. Joke break. Why did the peasant's cloak go viral? Because it was the ultimate throw-on trend. Kids are the real MVPs, swaddled until they look like overstuffed turnips, wobbling around like tiny, grumpy marshmallows. The goal's simple trap, every bit of body heat, because losing it means losing toes. You're not just fighting the cold. You're fighting style expectations. Medieval fashion's not about looking good, it's about not dying. Your neighbors aren't judging your outfit, they're too busy layering their own. Everyone smells like smoke and livestock. So nose blindness is the village's unofficial superpower. You're rubbing a bit of grease into your cloak now, hoping it'll block the wind better. It's not glamorous, but neither is freezing solid. Joke number 2. Why was the peasant's tunic so confident it knew it was the dirtiest player in the game? The cold's still creeping in, though nibbling at your fingers like a rude guest. You're shuffling closer to the hearth, where the fire's crackling like it's got something to prove. Your family's packed in tight, everyone looking like lumpy laundry bags. But there's a weird pride in it. You're warmish, you're alive. And that's a flex in medieval winter. The dirt's not just dirt, it's strategy. Every stain's a badge of survival. A story of that time you slipped in the mud or hugged the cow for warmth. Nobody's sniffing you for freshness. They're just glad you're still breathing. But it's not all rosy. The grime's a breeding ground for bugs. And you're scratching more than you'd like. Your tunic's so stiff it could probably stand up on its own. And you're pretty sure it's plotting to run away with the goat. Still, you keep layering, keep stinking, keep surviving. The wind's howling outside and rattling the animal hide over your window. But you're not giving up. You're a walking testament to grit, grease, and the power of not caring how you smell. Joke number 3. Why did the peasant skip laundry day? Because he was too busy winning the warmest stink award. You're settling in now. The hearth's glow painting your grimy face with flickering light. The cold's still out there, waiting for you to slip up. But you've got your crusty armor on, and you're ready for the next round. Survival's not pretty, but it's yours. And you're clinging to it with every itchy, smelly layer you've got. You're still hunkered down in that medieval hut. Your grimy layers doing their best to keep the cold from turning you into a frostbitten statue. The hearth's crackling, but its warmth barely reaches the corners of the room, where the wind's sneaking in like an uninvited guest. You're not just fighting the chill alone, though your whole family's in this with you, and maybe a few animals who think they're family too. It's time to get cozy, medieval style, which means piling into a snoring, squirming human lasagna. That's right. Personal space, never heard of it. In winter, you're all about sharing body heat, whether it's with your snoring uncle or a slightly judgy goat. You're squeezing into the warmest corner of the hut now, where everyone's already staking their claim like it's Black Friday at a blanket sale. Your parents are in the middle, kids tucked between them like human hot water bottles. Grandma's on the edge, muttering about how winters were colder back in her day. And your cousin Ethel, who showed up unannounced, is somehow wedged in anyway. Even the livestock's getting in on the action, chickens clucking in the rafters. A cow snorting by the wall. And that goat. It's eyeing your spot like it's prime real estate. You're all wrapped in whatever cloth you can find, from threadbare cloaks to a shared straw mattress that's flatter than your hopes for a warm night. The historical tie-in here is the 1230s, when chroniclers noted villages surviving brutal winters by communal sleeping, a tactic that kept entire families alive when hearths failed. It wasn't just cozy, it was survival math. An odd fact: some peasants slept with their pigs for extra warmth, because a snorting pig's better than a frozen foot. Historians still debate whether this closeness spread diseases faster, or if body heat saved more lives than it cost. But you're too busy dodging elbows to care. You're in the middle of the pile now, which is the VIP spot body heat radiating from all sides like a medieval sauna. If you're stuck on the edge, though, you're basically hugging the draft, and good luck staying warm. Joke break. Why did the peasant sleep so close to his cow? Because it was the only one who didn't steal the blanket. The straw mattress crunches under you, poking your back like it's got a personal grudge. Hygiene's not winning any awards here. Everyone smells like smoke, sweat, and livestock. But when frostbite's knocking, you stop being picky about Bo. The strategy's smart, though. The strongest folks, like your dad, sleep on the outside, shielding the weaker ones, babies and elders in the center. It's like a human fortress, with you as the squishy middle layer. Babies are tucked deep, their tiny breaths warming the pile, while Grandpa's wheezing adds a weird rhythm to the night. You're trying not to move too much because one wrong roll and you're knocking Aunt Marge into the cold zone, earning you the family villain title. Joke number 2. What's a medieval sleepover's worst enemy? The guy who fidgets and lets the draft in. It's not just about warmth, it's bonding in a sweaty, snoring kind of way. You're whispering stories to stay sane, like the one about the village ghost who only haunts drafty huts. Your sister's giggling, your brother's complaining about your cold feet, and the goat's chewing something it probably shouldn't. The air's thick with breath fog, and every snore's a reminder you're all still kicking. It's chaotic, but it works. Body heat's your secret weapon, turning a freezing night into something survivable. But it's not perfect. The pile's a flea festival, and you're itching like you've got a side gig as a scratching post. The cow's tail keeps flicking your face, and you're pretty sure the chickens are plotting a coup. Still, you're warm, and that's a win. The wind's howling outside, rattling the thatch, but inside, you're a toasty layer in this human lasagna, holding on to every degree of heat. Joke number 3. Why was the medieval family pile so good at singing? Because they were always in close harmony, literally. You're drifting off now, lulled by the snores and the faint crackle of the hearth. The cold's still out there, waiting for a chance to sneak in. But you're not alone. Your family has got your back literally, and even the goat's contributing a grudging huff of warmth. This isn't about comfort, it's about survival, and you're acing it. One crowded, smelly night at a time. The winter's long, but you're tougher. And with every breath, you're proving it. You're nestled in that medieval human lasagna, the warmth of your family and a grumpy goat keeping the cold at bay. But there's another enemy creeping up on you, one you can't swat away with a cloak or smother with snores. It's the frozen ground beneath you, seeping chill into your bones like a ghost with a grudge. You're sprawled on a straw mattress, or maybe just a pile of rushes on the dirt floor. But either way, the earth's not your friend tonight. It's a relentless cold that laughs at your layers and makes you wish you could hibernate like a sensible bear. You're fighting a battle on two fronts now, the air above and the ground below. And you're not about to let the floor win. The floor's no joke, compacted dirt. Maybe sprinkled with straw if you're feeling fancy. But it's basically a slab of permafrost in winter. When it rains or snows, it turns into a muddy mess, like your hut's cosplaying as a swamp. You're trying to sleep, but the cold's worming through the straw, straight into your spine, making you shiver like you're auditioning for a medieval dance troupe. You've layered rushes, long grasses over the dirt, hoping for insulation. But they flatten fast, get moldy faster, and start hosting a bug party you didn't RSVP to. An odd fact, some peasants didn't clean out old rushes, just piled fresh ones on top, creating a squishy, smelly carpet that was half floor, half ecosystem. A historical anchor here is the 1280s, when chronicles describe villages burying their dead indoors because the ground was too frozen to dig graves outside. That's how brutal the earth could be. You're sleeping inches above it, and it's not giving you a break. Historians still debate whether straw floors helped more with insulation or just spread fleas, but you're too busy fluffing your crunchy mattress to care. You're tossing and turning, not for comfort, but to keep your blood moving, because a still body is a frozen one. You're piling on more straw now, scavenging every dry bit you can find, because every inch between you and the ground is a victory. It's like building a fort, except instead of pillows, you've got prickly stalks that poke your ribs like they've got a personal vendetta. Joke break. Why did the peasants' floor throw a party? Because it was always down to get dirty. The straw's not perfect. It shifts, it crumbles, and it's got a soundtrack like you're sleeping on a bag of chips. But it's better than hugging the dirt, which feels like cuddling a glacier. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a wooden frame stuffed with more straw or hay, sagging under the weight of your family's nightly pile-up. No box springs, no memory foam, just a lumpy mess that smells like a barnyard's bad day. You're sharing it with your siblings, who are kicking like they're dreaming of soccer, and the fleas are having a field day. You're trying to ignore the itch, focusing on the faint warmth from the hearth across the room. The cows chewing cud in the corner, adding a weirdly soothing rhythm, but the ground's still there. Whispering. You're not warm yet. You're getting creative now, layering dried grass, old rags, anything to thicken the barrier. Some folks in the village swear by rushes mixed with lavender to mask the smell, but you're not that bougie plain straw's your jam. Joke number 2. Why was the medieval floor so grumpy? Because everyone kept walking all over it. The cold's relentless, though creeping up like it's got a personal score to settle. You're tucking your cloak tighter, pulling your knees to your chest, trying to trap every bit of heat. It's not about sleeping well, it's about waking up with all your toes. The family's still snoring around you, their breath fogging the air like tiny winter clouds. You're jealous of the baby, tucked in the center of the pile, probably dreaming of milk while you're dreaming of not being a popsicle. The ground's not just cold, it's a thief, stealing your warmth every second you're still. You shift, crunching the straw, hoping to find a less icy spot. Joke number 3. Why did the peasant hate his floor? Because it was always giving him the cold shoulder. You're not giving up, though. You're a peasant, and peasants are built for stubborn. You're piling on more rushes, jamming straw into the corners, and praying the hearth keeps spitting heat. The wind's howling outside, rattling the thatch, but you're holding the line. The ground's tough, but you're tougher, and every shiver's a reminder you're still in the fight. You're not conquering the cold, you're just outlasting it, one crunchy, chilly night at a time. You're still battling that medieval winter, the ground below you colder than a tax collector's heart. Your family's snores mixing with the goat's judgmental huffs. The hearth's your only real ally, its embers glowing like tiny promises in the dark. But keeping that fire alive through the night, that's not just a chore, it's an art form. And you're about to become a master of fire banking. You're crouched by the hearth now, carefully piling ash over the coals, treating them like fussy babies you can't afford to wake. If you get this right, you'll have warmth at dawn, mess it up, and you're waking up to a hut colder than your neighbor's grudge over that stolen turnip. Firebanking's simple in theory. Bury the embers under ash to insulate them, keeping them alive but low until morning. In practice, it's like diffusing a bomb with mittens on. Too much ash, and you smother the coals. Too little, and they burn out. You're using dry ash because damp stuff's a death sentence for embers, and you're packing it just right, not too tight, not too loose. Every family's got their secret recipe, passed down like it's the Holy Grail. Your mom swears by a loose pile. Your uncle insists on a tight pack. It's the medieval equivalent of arguing over how to fold a fitted sheet. An odd fact. Some peasants added a pinch of salt to the ash, believing it kept the fire lucky. No proof it worked. But you're not above a little superstition when your toes are on the line. A historical tie-in is the 1320s, when a chronicler noted villages surviving a brutal winter by perfecting fire banking, ensuring no family froze when snow buried their wood piles. Without matches or lighters, restarting a fire meant striking flint and steel with half-numb fingers, praying for a spark while the wind laughed in your face. Historians still debate whether fire banking was a universal skill or if some regions relied more on luck. But you're not taking chances. You're banking like your life depends on it because it does. You're poking the coals now, coaxing them to glow just enough to stay alive. The hearth's spitting smoke, stinging your eyes, but you're focused. The cow's watching from the corner, probably wondering why you're fussing over a pile of dirt. Joke break. Why did the medieval fire go to art school? Because it was great at smoldering masterpieces. The wind's howling outside, sneaking through the cracks you stuffed with moss last week. Remember that chilly adventure? And you're praying it doesn't snuff your embers. A stray gust could ruin everything, and you're not in the mood to play Flintstone Firestarter at 3:00. Your family's counting on you. Your little sister's curled up in the human lasagna, dreaming of something warmer than turnip stew, while your dad's snoring loud enough to scare off wolves. You're the night's ember keeper, and it's a big job for someone who's half asleep, and smells like a smoky barnyard? You're adding a stick to the fire, just enough to keep it happy without burning through your precious wood stash. Joke number 2. Why was the hearth so needy because it always wanted to be the center of attention? The process feels like a ritual now. Poke, pile, pray. You're whispering to the coals, half joking, half serious, telling them to hang in there. The hut's dark, save for the hearth's faint glow, casting shadows that dance like they're mocking your efforts. You're remembering the time your cousin botched the banking and woke up to a cold hearth and colder toes. Not you, though you're nailing this. The ash is just right. The coals are cozy, and you're feeling like a medieval MacGyver. But it's not foolproof. A clumsy sheep could stumble into the hearth. It's happened. Don't ask, or a rogue draft could sneak past your dung-smeared walls. You're checking the cracks again, just in case. Because you're not letting the wind win. Joke number 3. Why did the peasants' fire hate winter? Because it was always getting blown off. You're settling back now. The hearth's embers safely tucked in. Their faint glow a promise you'll see dawn. The cold's still out there, circling like a wolf. But you've bought yourself a few hours of warmth. You're crawling back to the straw pile, squeezing between your brother's elbow and the goat's tail, the hearth's crackle fading into the background. The night's long and the cold's not done with you yet, but you've got this fire banking thing down. Every surviving ember's a victory, a middle finger to winter's icy grip. You're not just surviving, you're outsmarting the cold. One carefully banked coal at a time. You're back in that medieval hut, the embers banked and glowing like tiny promises under their ash blanket, while the wind outside howls like it's auditioning for a werewolf movie. You're wedged in the human lasagna, the goat's tail flicking your face, but you're not thinking about sleep yet. Your stomach's growling louder than the storm, and you know one thing for sure to beat this cold. You need fuel not just for the hearth, but for your body. You're about to dig into a heavy, gut-busting meal. Because in medieval winters, a full belly isn't just comfort, it's your personal furnace, burning through the night to keep you from turning into a peasant popsicle. You're ladling out a steaming bowl of stew now, thick with turnips, onions, and maybe a scrap of barley if the harvest didn't totally flop. If you're lucky, there's a bit of salted pork floating in there, a rare treat from last month's slaughter. It's not Instagram worthy. No artisanal garnishes here, just a brown, lumpy mess that sticks to your ribs like a warm hug. You're scarfing it down, ignoring the fact that it tastes like it's been boiled with your cloak's attitude. An odd fact. Some peasants added acorns to their stew when grain ran low, grinding them into a gritty paste. It wasn't gourmet, but it kept you alive, even if it made your teeth feel like they'd been to war. The historical anchor is the 1315-1379 Great Famine, when harsh winters and ruined crops meant food was scarcer than a sunny day. You're eating big now because a heavy meal could mean the difference between shivering through the night or waking up warm. Historians still debate whether peasants prioritized calorie-dense foods out of instinct or learned wisdom, but you're not overthinking it. You're just shoveling stew like it's your job. The science is simple. Digestion generates heat, and fatty, starchy foods burn slow, keeping your body's fire stoked till dawn. You're tearing into a chunk of rye bread, so dense it could double as a doorstop. It's chewy, A little moldy if you're honest, but you're not picky when frostbite's knocking. Your mom's glaring at your little brother, who's whining about the turnips. Eat it or freeze, she snaps, and he grudgingly complies. Medieval parenting, tough love with a side of survival. Joke break. Why did the peasant love stew? Because it was the only thing that didn't run away from him. You're sipping a watery ale, too, because clean water's a myth. And ale's got just enough kick to make you forget the cold for a second. The goal's to eat smart foods that take forever to digest. Like a brick in your gut, radiating warmth all night. Fat's your friend. So you're eyeing that bit of lard in the pot like it's gold. You're not worried about cholesterol. You're worried about icicles forming on your nose. The stew's settling in now, making you feel like you've swallowed a campfire. Joke number 2. Why was the medieval meal so warm? Because it was cooked with decaf decalories or fuel. Your family's crowded around the hearth, bowls in hand. The cow in the corner chewing cud like it's judging your table manners. But it's not all cozy vibes. A heavy meal can spark some wild dreams, like you're fighting a dragon made of cabbages. And let's not talk about the gas between you, your siblings, and that goat. The hut's a symphony of questionable noises. Still, you're warm. And that's the point. You're wiping your bowl with the last of the bread, feeling the heat spread from your stomach to your fingers. The wind's still rattling the thatch, but you're ready to face the night, fueled up like a medieval space heater. You're crawling back to the straw pile now, your belly full and your body humming with warmth. The hearth's embers are still banked, "Nice job last night." By the way, and the human lasagna's waiting. You're burping turnips, ignoring your sister's glare, and settling in, the stew doing its magic. Joke number 3. Why did the peasant eat so much? Because he wanted to be the little spoon in the heat spoon. The cold's out there, circling like a hungry wolf. But you've got a secret weapon, a belly full of stew, burning bright against winter's chill. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. One hearty bite at a time. You're nestled back in that medieval hut, your belly full of turnip stew acting like a personal heater. The hearth's embers glowing softly under their ash blanket. The wind still screaming outside, rattling the thatch like it's got a personal grudge. And your family's snoring in the human lasagna, with the goat adding its own grumpy soundtrack. But there's another trick you're mastering to keep winter from winning. And it's not about cloaks or fires, it's about how you breathe. That's right. You're learning to breathe like a medieval ninja, slow and shallow through your nose. Because sucking in icy air like you're gasping for drama could land you coughing your soul out by morning. Deep breaths are a rookie mistake in this cold. You try gulping air like you're running from a wolf, and that freezing blast hits your lungs like a punch, setting you up for pneumonia or worse. You're keeping it cool, literally breathing short, steady, nose only, warming the air just enough before it dives deep. It's not perfect, but it's better than hacking up a lung while your grandma brews onion tea and prays over you. An odd fact. Some peasants tuck their cloaks over their faces while sleeping, creating a soggy breath warmer that smelled like yesterday's stew. Gross but effective, like most medieval hacks. The historical tie-in is the 1348 Black Death. When crowded, smoky huts and bad air were blamed for spreading disease. Breathing shallow wasn't just about warmth, it was about dodging whatever invisible nasties were floating around. Historians still debate whether peasants knew shallow breathing helped, or if they stumbled into it out of necessity. But you're not taking chances. You're sipping air like it's fine wine, keeping your lungs happy and your body heat locked in. You're curled up in the straw pile now, your nose barely poking out from under your cloak. The air's so cold it stings. But you're in control, breathing like you're meditating in a frostbitten dojo. Your sister's panting like a dog, and you hiss. Nose only. Dummy because you're not letting her cough ruin everyone's night. Joke break. Why was the peasant's breath so stealthy? Because it was trained in the art of ninja nose foo. The hut's dark, save by the hearth's faint glow, and every breath fogs the air like you're a dragon with a cold. It's not just about survival, it's about strategy. You're teaching your little brother the trick, scolding him when he yawns like he's auditioning for a play. Keep it shallow or you're sleeping with the chickens. You mutter, and he grumbles but complies. The cow's huffing in the corner, its breath adding to the foggy vibe, and you're half jealous of its carefree snoring. Your cloak's damp from your breath, clinging to your face like a clingy ex, but it's doing its job, trapping warmth where it counts. Joke number 2. Why did the medieval kid get breathing lessons? Because his parents wanted him to stop sounding like a broken bellows. The wind still clawing at the walls, sneaking through the moss you stuffed in the cracks. Nice callback to that chilly chore. You're focused, though. Each breath a quiet act of defiance. It's like a game, keep it slow, keep it steady, and you win another hour without coughing. Your family's oblivious, snoring through their own foggy clouds. But you're the night's breath master, keeping the cold from sneaking inside you, the straws poking your back, the goat's tails tickling your ear, but you're locked in, breathing like a pro. It's not glamorous, your nose is runny, your cloak's soggy, and you're pretty sure you smell like a mix of stew and barnyard. But it's working. You're warm. You're alive. And your lungs aren't staging a revolt. Joke number 3. Why was the peasant's nose so proud? Because it was the gatekeeper of winter survival. You're drifting off now, lulled by the rhythm of your own breaths, the hearth's crackle, and the faint cluck of a chicken in the rafters. The cold's out there, waiting for you to slip up. But you've got this ninja breathing down pat. You're not just surviving, you're outsmarting winter. One shallow breath at a time. You're still tucked into that medieval hut. You're ninja breathing, keeping your lungs from staging a frosty revolt. The hearth's embers banked like precious treasure. Nice work on that ash pile. By the way, the wind's howling outside, rattling the thatch like it's got a score to settle. And your family's snoring in the human lasagna, the goat's tail flicking like it's conducting the chaos. You're warmish thanks to your stew-fueled furnace and grimy layers, Titan, but you're about to level up your survival game with 2 unsung heroes of medieval winters, the haybox and the heated stone. These aren't just hacks. They're your ticket to a night without icicles dangling from your nose. You're eyeing a wooden box by the hearth, lined thick with hay like a rustic slow cooker. It's your hay box, and it's pure genius. Earlier, you tossed in a pot of hot porridge, covered it with more hay, and shut the lid. Hours later, it's still warm, ready for a midnight snack without risking a fire restart. But the hay box isn't just for food, you're using it to trap heat for something even better, a stone. You're fishing a flat rock from the hearth now, roasted to a toasty glow. Using a stick because you're not into third-degree burns, you wrap it in rags and tuck it into the hay box, or sometimes straight into your straw mattress. It's a medieval heating pad, radiating warmth like a hug from a campfire. An odd fact. Some peasants used clay pots to hold heated stones, thinking the clay breathed heat better than cloth. No science to back it up, but when you're freezing, you'll try anything. The historical tie-in is the 1270s, when chronicles mention villagers surviving a brutal winter by using heated stones to warm beds. A trick that spread faster than gossip about the neighbor's runaway pig. Historians still debate whether hay boxes were common or a regional quirk, but you're just glad for the extra warmth. No thesis required. You're sliding the wrapped stone under the straw now, feeling its heat seep into your feet like a mini miracle. The hay box is doing double duty, keeping your porridge ready and your stone toasty. Joke break. Why did the peasant love his hay box? Because it was the only thing that didn't complain about his cooking. The hut's dark. The hearth's glow barely reaching the corners. But your stone's got your back, literally. You're careful, though, at drop it, and you've got a bruised toe. Wrap it wrong, and you're explaining to your mom why the mattress is smoldering. Medieval life's all about finesse. Your family's oblivious, snoring through the cold. But you're the night's heat wizard. Your little brother's eyeing the stone like it's a toy, and you snap, touch it, and you're sleeping with the chickens. He backs off, grumbling. The cow's chewing cud in the corner, adding a weirdly soothing rhythm. But you're focused on maximizing warmth. You're tucking another rag around the stone, trapping every degree. Joke number 2. Why was the heated stone so popular? Because it was the hottest trend in medieval bedding. It's not foolproof. A clumsy sheep could knock the hay box over, remember that hearth incident. Or the stone could cool too fast if you skimp on the rags. You're double-checking the wrap because you're not about to lose this heat. The wind's still clawing at the moss-stuffed cracks. Good call on that fix, ain't? And you're praying the thatch holds. The hay box is your backup plan. A cozy vault of warmth that's got your name on it. You're feeling smug. Like you've outsmarted winter with a rock and some straw. You're settling back into the straw pile now. The stone's warmth spreading like a slow sunrise. The goat's giving you side-eye, probably jealous of your setup. The hearth's embers are still banked. The stew's still burning in your belly. And your ninja breathing's keeping you steady. Joke number 3. Why did the peasant stone go to therapy? Because it was tired of carrying all the heat. The cold's out there, circling like a hungry wolf. But you've got your hay box and hot rock locked and loaded. You're not just surviving, you're cozying up to winter. One toasty trick at a time. You're still cozied up in that medieval hut. The heated stone under your straw mattress radiating warmth like a loyal friend. Your hay box keeping porridge ready for a midnight munch. The hearth's embers are banked tight, nice ash piling skills. And your ninja breathing's keeping your lungs frost-free. The wind's still raging outside, shaking the thatch like it's got a personal beef. But inside, you're holding the line against winter's chill. Now, you're stepping up to a bigger role, not just keeping your family warm, but joining the village's unsung heroes, the Winter Watchers. You're part of a community effort to make sure no hearth goes dark, because in medieval winters, no one survives alone unless they're aiming for frozen statue status. You're slipping out of the human lasagna. Careful not to wake your snoring sister or the goat, who's dreaming of greener pastures. The village is quiet, blanketed in snow, but you're on patrol, checking for signs of trouble. A dark chimney means a dead fire, and that's a crisis. You're trudging through the drifts now, your cloak flapping, breath fogging like you're a dragon with a cold. Your job's simple but vital: spot a problem. Fix it fast. Maybe old Tom's hearth went out, or Widow Agnes hasn't been seen in days. You're carrying a bundle of kindling and a glowing coal wrapped in rags, ready to restart a fire or drag someone to your hut's smoky warmth. The historical tie-in is the 1306-1307 winter, when chronicles describe villages pooling resources to survive a brutal cold snap, sharing wood and food to keep every hearth alive. An odd fact: some villages used kids as runners, sending them with embers and clay pots to restart fires, because they were small enough to dodge snowdrifts. Historians still debate whether this community spirit was pure altruism or just survival math, but you're too busy knocking on doors to care. You're at Tom's hut now, smoke barely trickling from his chimney. You barge in, find him shivering, and get to work, poking his coals back to life like a medieval EMT. Joke break. Why was the village watcher so nosy because he had to sniff out every cold hearth? The cold's biting your fingers, but you're moving fast, piling dry sticks and blowing on the embers till they catch. Tom's muttering thanks, offering you a frozen turnip like it's gold. You wave it off. Neighbor's code says you help now. They help later. The village is a web, and every warm hut strengthens it. You're checking Widow Agnes next, her door creaking like it's auditioning for a ghost story. She's fine, just hoarding wood like a squirrel, and you scold her gently before heading back out. You're not alone in this. Other watchers are out there, kids darting with embers, elders peering from doorways, everyone keeping an eye on everyone else. It's not all kumbaya, feuds over stolen goats or bad debt still simmer, but winter's a truce. You're remembering the time your cousin got stuck in a drift, delivering wood, same guy who botched the fire banking. Right. Joke number 2. Why did the watcher hate snowdrifts? Because they were always throwing shade on his patrol. The snow's crunching under your clogs, the stars glittering like they're cheering you on. But the cold's relentless, nibbling at your nose. Back at your hut, you're warming your hands by the hearth, the cow eyeing you like you're late for curfew. The village's hearths are burning, thanks to you and the watchers. And that's a win. You're sharing a scrap of bread with your brother, who's whining about the cold. Toughen up, you mutter, but you toss him an extra rag. The wind's still clawing at the moss-stuffed cracks, but the community's got your back. Joke number 3. Why was the village so warm? Because it was fueled by neighborly nosiness. You're settling back into the straw pile, the heated stone still toasty, knowing you've kept the village alive for another night. Winter's tough, but together, you're tougher. One watchful step at a time. You're back in your medieval hut, the village safe for another night thanks to your watcher patrol. The hearth's embers glowing softly under their ash blanket. You're basically a pro at firebanking now. The wind's still howling outside, rattling the thatch like it's trying to pick a fight. And your family's snoring in the human lasagna, the goat's tail flicking like it's keeping time. Your heated stone's still radiating warmth, and your belly's humming from that turnip stew. But in this freezing, drafty world, you're turning to one last line of defense against the cold prayer. You're whispering to the saints, half begging, half bargaining, hoping they'll keep your fire burning and your toes frostbite free. Because in medieval winters, a little divine backup never hurts. You're clutching a worn wooden cross, maybe carved by your dad during a less frigid season, and murmuring a prayer to Saint Cuthbert, who's got a rep for protecting against harsh weather. It's not just you your mom's muttering to Saint Brigid, patron of hearths, while your brother's half asleep, mumbling something about Saint Nicholas saving his fingers. The hut's dark, save for the hearth's faint glow, and your breath's fogging the air like holy smoke. You're promising to skip swearing for a week. Good luck with that if the fire holds till dawn. An odd fact. Some peasants left bread by the hearth as an offering to saints, hoping it'd bribe them for warmth. Moldy bread? Sure, but it's the thought that counts. The historical tie-in is the 1290s, when chronicles describe villagers flocking to churches during the brutal winters, praying for relief from snow and starvation. Miracles were reported, fires rekindling, food lasting longer, and whether it was divine or just luck, it kept hope alive. Historians still debate whether faith was a psychological crutch or a real motivator for survival, but you're too busy negotiating with Saint Cuthbert to care. You're picturing him up there, maybe rolling his eyes at your shaky Latin, but you're throwing in a promise to help widow Agnes with her woodpile for good measure. Joke break. Why did the peasant pray so hard? Because he wanted to be on the saint's nice list? Not the frostbite one. You're kneeling on the straw now, ignoring the poke of a stray stalk. Your cloak pulled tight against the chill sneaking through the moss-stuffed cracks. Solid work on those, by the way, the cow's chewing cud in the corner. Probably unimpressed by your spiritual hustle. But you're in the zone. You're not just praying for warmth, you're praying for the whole package, a steady fire. No sick kids. And maybe a spring that doesn't suck. It's a lot to ask, but medieval life's a lot to handle. Your family's in on it, too. Their murmurs blending with the wind's wail. Your grandma's reciting a charm, half prayer, half folk spell, something about binding the cold with a thread. It's not exactly church approved, but you're not snitching. The hearth's crackling, almost like it's listening, and you're wondering if Bridget's giving you a nod. Joke number 2. Why was Saint Cuthbert so chill? Because he knew how to keep the faith in the fire burning? You're feeling a spark of hope, not just from the hearth, but from the idea that someone, somewhere, might be rooting for you. It's not all rosy, though. Doubt creeps in last winter. You prayed hard, and the chicken still froze. But you shake it off because giving up's not your style. You're tucking the cross under your tunic, settling back into the straw pile. The heated stone still toasty hay box for the win. The saints might not show up with a magic blanket, but praying's keeping your spirits up. And that's half the battle. Joke number 3. Why did the peasant's prayer get lost? Because it got stuck in a snowdrift on its way to heaven. You're drifting off now, lulled by the hearth's glow. Your family snores, and the faint cluck of a chicken in the rafters. The wind's still out there, circling like a wolf, but you've got your prayers locked and loaded alongside your stew, your stone, and your ninja breathing. You're not just surviving, you're leaning on faith, grit, and a touch of holy hustle to outlast winter, one whispered plea at a time. You're huddled in your medieval hut, prayers to St. Cuthbert still lingering in the smoky air. The hearth's embers banked tight, you're a fire-banking legend by now, and your heated stone keeping your toes from turning to ice. The wind's still clawing at the thatch, and your family's snoring in the human lasagna. The goat's grumbles adding to the nighttime symphony. You've fought the cold with stew, straw, and shallow breaths, but now you're facing the grim truth sometimes. Winter wins. You're staring down the brutal reality of the Great Famine. When the cold didn't just test you, it crushed entire villages, and survival wasn't guaranteed. No matter how many saints you bribed with moldy bread, it's 1315 and the world's gone sideways. Rain's been relentless, turning fields to mud and crops to rot. Winters are harsher, longer, and your turnip stash is dwindling faster than your optimism. You're rationing stew now, a thin gruel that's more water than warmth. And the cow's looking scrawnier by the day. The village is quiet, too quiet, because hunger and cold are taking their toll. Neighbors are missing, either holed up or worse, and the watcher patrols remember your heroic trudging are struggling to keep up. An odd fact. During the famine, some peasants ate grass or tree bark, desperate to fill their bellies. It didn't work well, but it's a gut-punch reminder of how bad things got. The historical anchor is the Great Famine of 1317, when Europe lost up to a fifth of its population to starvation, disease, and cold. Chronicles describe bodies piled in streets, too frozen to bury, and villages abandoned as survivors fled. Historians still debate whether the famine's toll was worse due to weather or mismanagement, but you're too busy counting turnips to care. You're ladling out the last of the gruel now. Your little brother's eyes big and hollow, and you're forcing a smile, saying, "We'll be fine," even though you're not sure you believe it. Joke break. Why did winter hate the peasants? Because they kept trying to outsmart it with straw and stubbornness. You're stoking the hearth, hands shaken from cold or hunger. Maybe both. The straw mattress feels thinner, the hut draftier, and the goat stopped chewing, like it knows things are dire. You're remembering neighbors who didn't make it old Tom, who you saved last week, gone quiet now. The cold's not just weather, it's a thief. Stealing breath, hope, and sometimes lives. You're fighting it, but winter's got a mean streak, and the famine's its ugly sidekick. You're trying to keep the family going. Your mom's whispering prayers, your dad's splitting the last log with grim focus, and you're stuffing more moss in the cracks. You're basically a caulking pro. The village watchers are still out there, but their footsteps are slower, their bundles lighter. You're sharing a scrap of bread with your sister, tearing it like it's a sacred ritual. Joke number 2. Why was the famine so cruel? Because it turned stew into a fairy tale? The hearth's still burning, but it's a faint flicker. And you're banking it with extra care because losing the fire now would be game over. It's not all despair, though. You're clinging to the little winds, your heated stones still warm. Your ninja breathing's keeping you steady, and your family's still here. snoring and grumbling. You're telling stories to lift spirits, like the one about a magic cow that pooped gold. The kids love that one. The cold's winning some battles, but you're not out yet. You're rationing, praying, and pushing through, because giving up's not in your blood. Joke number 3. Why did the peasant keep fighting winter? Because he was too stubborn to let the snow write his ending. You're curling back into the straw pile now. The hearth's glow a faint reminder of hope. The wind's still out there. The famine's still looming. But you're not alone. Your family's breath fogs the air. The goat's tail brushes your hand. And you're holding on. Winter's taken its shots. But you're still swinging, one shivering, starving night at a time. The great famine's a beast, but you're a peasant, and peasants don't go down easy. You're pulling through the brutal grip of the great famine in your medieval hut. The hearth's embers barely holding on. You're still nailing that fire banking, though the wind snarling outside like it's got a vendetta. Your family's huddled in the human lasagna. The goat's grumbling softer now, and your stomach's tighter than the straw mattress. But we're shifting gears, time to leap from your frostbitten village to the sizzling drama of Tudor England, where you're witnessing Anne Boleyn's fiery rise. A woman who turned heads, broke hearts, and shook the foundations of a kingdom. The cold's still in your bones. But this story is about to heat things up. It's 1533, and you're in the glittering, treacherous world of Henry VIII's court. Anne Boleyn's not just a name, she's a force. Striding through Whitehall Palace with eyes that spark like your hearth's best embers, you're a lowly servant, maybe polishing goblets or dodging nobles' tantrums. But you've got a front row seat to her ascent. Anne's no shrinking violet, she's witty, sharp, and bold, refusing to be Henry's mistress like her sister Mary was. She's holding out for a crown, and it's flipping the court upside down. Her dark hair and French flair make her stand out among the pale, prim ladies, and you're half in awe, half terrified of her nerve. An odd fact, Anne had a sixth finger on one hand, or so the gossip went, probably a smear to paint her as a witch. But you're not buying it. The historical anchor is Anne's coronation in June 1533, when she was crowned queen after Henry broke with Rome to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. It's a seismic shift. England's church is splitting, and Anne's the spark. You're in the crowd, watching her process through London, pregnant with the future Elizabeth I, her smile tight but triumphant. Historians still debate whether Anne was a schemer or a survivor, but you see her dodging traps daily, Catherine's loyalists, scheming courtiers, even Henry's wandering eye. She's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, and you're rooting for her, even if the stakes feel like a guillotine. Joke break. Why was Anne Boleyn so good at court? Because she always knew when to hold 'em and when to fold 'em, except with Henry. You're scurrying through the palace now, carrying a tray of spiced wine, overhearing whispers about Anne's latest move. She's pushing for reform, charming ambassadors, and keeping Henry hooked. But it's like dancing on a knife's edge. The court's a snake pit. Nobles like Norfolk grumble, and maids like you gossip about her velvet gowns and sharp tongue. You're dodging a drunk lord who's yelling about that Boleyn witch, and you're thinking, mate, she's outsmarting you all. Anne's rise isn't just glamour, it's grit. She's navigating a world where one wrong word could end her. You're watching her charm a French envoy, her laugh cutting through the tension like a blade. She's got enemies circling, but she's not flinching. Joke number 2. Why did Anne never sweat the haters? Because she had a neck for staying cool under pressure. You're refilling candles now, the palace glowing like a fever dream, and you're catching Anne's eye for a split second. She nods, like she sees you, a nobody. It's a rush, like you're part of her wildfire, but it's not all glitter. The court's buzzing with rumors Anne's not delivering a son, and Henry's patience is thinner than your hut's walls. You're hearing murmurs of Jane Seymour, a new face catching the king's eye, and you're worried for Anne. The same fire that lifted her could burn her out. You're back in the shadows, scrubbing pots, but you're thinking about her, a woman who dared to rewrite the rules. Joke number 3. Why was Anne's court life so spicy? Because she brought the heat to a cold throne. You're slipping back to your palate now, the palace's warmth a far cry from your village's icy hut. Anne's story's blazing in your mind, a reminder that ambition's a fire, warm but dangerous. The cold's waiting back home, but for now, you're carried by her spark, a woman who shook England's core. You're not just surviving, you're witnessing history burn bright. One daring step at a time. You're still reeling from Anne Boleyn's fiery ascent in the Tudor court, her bold moves sparking a kingdom's upheaval. But now you're yanked across time and seas to 1773, standing on the gritty docks of Boston Harbor. The air's sharp with salt and rebellion. And you're not just a bystander, you're elbow deep in the chaos of the Boston Tea Party, where colonists are dumping crates of tea into the icy water, flipping a giant middle finger to the British crown. The cold's biting your fingers, but the heat of defiance is keeping you warm. And you're about to join a revolution that'll brew something far bigger than a cuppa. It's December 16th, 1773, and you're a young apprentice, maybe a cooper or a blacksmith's grunt, roped into the Sons of Liberty's wild plan. The harbor's buzzing, torches flickering like they're in on the plot. Your disguise may be some ash smeared on your face, a hat pulled low, because getting caught means a noose or worse. The tea ships, Dartmouth, Eleanor, and Beaver, are moored, their cargo a symbol of Parliament's smug taxes. You're hauling a crate with a mate named Sam, who's grinning like he's stealing Christmas. An odd fact. Some colonists dressed as Mohawk warriors, not for accuracy, but to throw off the redcoats' medieval dung-smeared walls, got nothing on this theater. The historical anchor is the Boston Tea Party itself, a spark that lit the American Revolution. Over 90,000 pounds of tea worth about $1.7 million today went into the drink. A protest against the Tea Act's tax grab. Historians still debate whether it was pure principle or a mix of smuggler greed, but you're too busy hefting crates to argue. You're cracking open a chest, the tea leaves spilling like dark snow into the harbor's inky water. The crowd's cheering, a mix of huzzas and curses, and you're feeling like you're rewriting history with every splash. Joke break. Why did the tea hate Boston Harbor? Because it knew it was about to take a cold bath. You're dodging a splintered crate, your boots slipping on the slick deck. The air's thick with tea dust and salt water, and you're coughing but laughing, because this is chaos with a cause. The British soldiers are nowhere near yet, but you're keeping an eye out, heart pounding like a war drum. Your mate Sam's tossing tea like he's born for it, whispering about no taxation without representation like it's a tavern chant. It's not all glory, though. The water's freezing, and some poor sod's fallen in, flailing like a fish while the crowd roars. You're pulling him out. Your hand's numb, but the fire in your chest keeps you moving. The tea's piling up in the harbor, a murky soup of rebellion, and you're wondering if London's going to choke on it. Joke number 2. Why was the tea party so loud? Because the colonists were brewing trouble. You're hauling another crate, muscles burning, but every toss feels like a punch at the crown's smug face. The night's alive with defiance, men shouting, axes splintering wood, tea drifting like a weird tide. You're catching a glimpse of John Adams in the crowd, his face grim but gleaming, like he knows this is bigger than a prank. The harbor smells like a tea shop gone rogue, and you're grinning despite the cold creeping up your legs. You're not just dumping tea, you're dumping a whole empire's arrogance, and it feels good. Joke number 3. Why did the colonists join the tea party? Because he wanted to stir the pot and steep the revolution. You're slipping back to the shadows now, the last crate sinking, the crowd melting into the night before the redcoats show. Your heart still racing, your hands sticky with tea and salt, but you're buzzing with the thrill of it. Back in your medieval hut, you fought winter with stew and straw. Here, you're fighting tyranny with tea and guts. The cold's still out there, but you're carrying the heat of rebellion, one defiant splash at a time. The revolution's just starting, and you're already all in. You're still buzzing from the tea-soaked rebellion in Boston Harbor, the salty sting of defiance fresh on your hands. But now you're whisked across continents and centuries to the sun-scorched sands of ancient Peru, around 2600 BCE. You're standing in the Soup Valley, gawking at the sprawling pyramids of Corral, a city that hums with a quiet, mysterious energy. No bitter winds or turnip stew here, just desert heat, intricate stonework, and a civilization so peaceful it feels like a dream compared to your medieval hut or Boston's chaos. You're not just surviving now, you're witnessing the cradle of the Americas, where Corral's desert symphony plays out in stone and song. You're a visitor in Corral, maybe a trader hauling quinoa or a curious wanderer, your sandals crunching on the dusty paths. The city's alive but calm, no swords, no war cries, just people weaving cotton, carving flutes, and tending crops by the Supe River. The pyramids loom, not flashy like Egypt's, but functional. They're stone terraces hosting rituals you don't fully grasp. You're watching priests in bright textiles burn offerings, their chants blending with the wind like a melody older than time. An odd fact, Corral's people use knotted cords called quipus to track goods. Like an ancient spreadsheet, your village's tally sticks feel primitive in comparison. The historical anchor is Corral itself, one of the oldest known cities in the Americas, thriving from 2600 to 2000 BCE. It's a marvel, no fortifications, no weapons, just a society built on trade and ceremony, not conquest. Historians still debate why Corral stayed peaceful while others turned to war, but you're too busy soaking it in. You're trading a sack of dried fish for a woven mat, the air thick with the scent of maize and desert dust. The sun's baking your shoulders. A far cry from the frostbite you dodged in 1315, and you're almost missing your heated stone, almost. Joke break. Why was Corral so chill? Because it had the best vibes and no beef. You're wandering past an amphitheater, where musicians play flutes carved from pelican bones, their notes hauntingly clear. Kids are running, tossing cotton balls in some game you don't get, and you're struck by how nobody's fighting over the last turnip. The river's sparkle keeps the fields green, and you're munching on a sweet potato, a treat that makes your medieval stew seem like punishment. The people here don't hoard, they share, and you're wondering if your village could learn a thing or two. It's not all utopia, though. The desert's harsh, and a bad flood or drought could spell trouble. You're watching a farmer check irrigation channels, his face creased with worry, and you're reminded of the Great Famine's lean days. Still, Corral's got a rhythm work, trade, music. Repeat that feels sustainable, like they've cracked a code you're still fumbling. Joke number 2. Why did Corral's flutes sound so good? Because they were played with decaf to calm Andean flow. You're sitting by a pyramid now, the stone warm under your hands, feeling the weight of a civilization that doesn't need to shout to be heard. The sun's dipping, painting the sky in reds and golds, and you're joining a crowd for a ceremony, maybe a harvest? Thanks, maybe a star-watching ritual. The priests toss coca leaves into a fire, and you're clapping along, caught up in the moment. It's not the fiery rebellion of Boston or Anne Boleyn's courtly blaze, but it's powerful in its quiet way. Joke number 3. Why was Corral's pyramid so cool? Because it was built with stone-cold serenity. You're heading back to your temporary reed hut, the desert cooling fast, but your heart's warm with Corral's strange, peaceful magic. You're lying on a woven mat now, no straw poking your ribs, no wind rattling the walls. Corral's a world away from your medieval struggles, Boston's fury, or Tudor schemes, but it's a reminder survival isn't always a fight. Sometimes it's a song, a shared meal, a quipu knot tied just right. The stars are blazing above, and you're carrying this desert symphony back to your icy hut, one ancient note at a time.